Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you enjoy these deep dives, don't forget to like and subscribe and click the bell icon.
Yeah.
Today, we're going on a journey
Ooh, a journey. I like it.
to a place that many of us may think we know. But trust me, we're going deeper than ever before into the world of temperate forests.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're studying for the UPSC exams or are just fascinated by the planet we call home, this one's for you. And to help guide us through these incredible ecosystems, we have a true expert in the field joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I think a lot of people don't realize just how fascinating temperate forests really are.
I agree, and I think one of the things that makes them so fascinating is their complexity. But before we get into all that, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What exactly defines a temperate forest?
Well, the name itself kind of gives it away.
Yeah.
Temperate, right. It's all about moderation.
Okay, so Goldilocks zone of forests. Not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly. They exist in those mid-latitude regions where the climate is, well, temperate. You get those distinct seasons, warm summers and cool winters, and a good amount of rainfall throughout the year. This balance creates the perfect conditions for some of the most productive ecosystems on Earth.
Productive meaning?
Meaning they're teeming with life, a ton of biodiversity, tons of different species of plants and animals all interacting and thriving together.
So even though the climate is balanced, the ecosystem itself is bursting with variety.
That's super cool. And I know from my own experiences, even within that temperate definition, there's so much diversity.
Oh, absolutely.
What are the main types of temperate forests we see around the world?
So there are three main categories: temperate deciduous forests, temperate evergreen forests, and temperate rainforests.
Okay, so deciduous, those are the ones that lose their leaves in the fall, right? Giving us those amazing autumn colors. You got it. Think of those classic broadleaf trees, oaks, maples, and beeches. They've adapted to those distinct seasons by shedding their leaves in the fall to conserve energy over the winter. You'll find them mainly across the northern hemisphere, places like the eastern United States, Europe, and parts of Asia.
Beautiful. Now, the evergreens, these are the ones that stay green all year round.
Yep, as the name suggests, they keep their foliage throughout the year. They're dominated by coniferous trees like pines, spruces, and firs. Those needle-like leaves allow them to survive colder, drier climates. You'll find them in regions with milder winters like the Pacific Northwest and along the Mediterranean coast.
So they're like the tough guys of the forest world, weathering whatever comes their way.
Pretty much.
And last but not least, we have temperate rainforests. These always sound so magical to me.
They are pretty amazing. Imagine lush, damp forests, often shrouded in mist. They have a mix of both deciduous and evergreen trees, and they occur in very specific areas. Coastal regions with a lot of rainfall and moderate temperatures, places like the Pacific Northwest of North America, southern Chile, and parts of New Zealand and Australia.
So like a little bit of everything, but always with that constant dampness.
Exactly. All that moisture leads to an incredible abundance of life, making them some of the most biodiverse ecosystems on the planet.
Okay, so we've got our three main types, each shaped by those subtle variations in climate and location. But beyond just their beauty and diversity, why should we care about these forests? Like, what makes them so crucial to the planet and to us?
That's a really important question, especially for those preparing for the UPSC exams. Understanding the ecological significance of different biomes is key. They're not just pretty to look at. They play some vital roles in keeping our planet healthy.
So it's not just memorizing facts, it's understanding how everything's interconnected.
Right, exactly.
Let's break down why temperate forests are so ecologically significant. What makes them special?
One of the most critical roles they play is in carbon sequestration,
Which means?
which means they act like giant carbon sinks, absorbing and storing vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
So helping to regulate the Earth's climate, not bad for just standing around looking pretty.
Nope. They're vital for mitigating climate change.
Okay, so carbon storage, huge plus. What else?
Then there's the incredible biodiversity we've been talking about. These forests support a huge variety of plants and animals, all interconnected. We're talking about complex food webs, intricate relationships between species, and a level of biodiversity that's crucial for the health of the entire planet.
It's like a giant, incredibly intricate web of life, and each species plays a part.
Exactly.
And I imagine this biodiversity also translates into valuable resources for us humans, right?
Of course. Temperate forests provide us with a wealth of resources. Timber for construction, furniture, paper, you name it. Then there are all the non-timber forest products.
Non-timber, Like what?
Think about the wild foods we can forage, medicinal plants used in traditional medicine, and the inspiration they provide for art, literature, and spiritual practices.
It really is incredible how these forests are woven into the fabric of our lives.
It is, isn't it?
But, and maybe this is a bit of a bummer question, I know these ecosystems are facing some serious challenges.
Yeah.
Can we talk a bit about what's threatening the health and survival of temperate forests?
Unfortunately, yes. Despite their vital role, temperate forests are under threat from a number of factors, and they're often interconnected, creating a cascade of negative impacts.
So not just one problem, but a whole bunch of them, all tangled up together.
Exactly.
Well, let's untangle them. What's the biggest threat?
Well, deforestation is a major issue.
Okay, so we're talking about...
We're talking about the clearing of forests for various reasons.
Right.
Logging, agriculture, urban development, all of these contribute. And when we lose forest cover, it leads to habitat loss and fragmentation.
Habitat fragmentation meaning...
It means that the forest becomes broken up into smaller, isolated patches. This can make it much harder for species to thrive.
So it's like we're chipping away at the foundation of a house and expecting it to stay standing. We need these forests, but we keep pushing them closer to the edge.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just deforestation. We also have to worry about things like invasive species.
Invasive species. Those are the plants and animals that don't belong and end up causing a whole bunch of problems, right?
Right. And climate change is a huge factor as well.
Of course. Climate change makes everything worse.
It does. Rising temperatures, changing rainfall patterns, more extreme weather events.
All of that can have a really devastating impact on these fragile ecosystems.
Definitely.
Okay, so the picture is a bit grim, but I'm hoping it's not all doom and gloom. Are there any glimmers of hope? Is there anything we can do to protect these vital ecosystems from all these threats?
Absolutely. It's not too late to turn things around. There are a number of strategies we can implement to ensure the long-term health and resilience of temperate forests, and we'll dive into those in the next part of our deep dive.
Perfect. Well, I am definitely looking forward to hearing about those solutions because this has been a pretty eye-opening conversation so far.
It's important to be aware of the challenges.
For sure, but also to know that there are things we can do to make a difference.
Exactly.
All right, well, we'll be right back after a short break to discuss those solutions and delve even deeper into the fascinating world of temperate forests.
Sounds good. So let's jump right into those solutions because I think it's important to highlight that there are things we can do, things we can all be a part of.
Absolutely. We've talked about the doom and gloom, but let's focus on the positive action that we can take. Where do we start?
One of the most effective approaches is to expand protected areas.
So like more national parks, nature reserves, those kinds of things.
Yeah, exactly. Setting aside land specifically for conservation can make a huge difference. It protects critical habitats, creates safe havens for biodiversity, and gives these ecosystems a chance to thrive.
But isn't it a bit like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound? I mean, if we're still losing forests at an alarming rate, won't those protected areas eventually become isolated islands?
That's a valid concern, and it's why connectivity is so important.
Connectivity, meaning?
We need to think about creating corridors or pathways between protected areas. This allows for movement and gene flow between populations, which is essential for long-term survival.
So it's not just about creating these isolated pockets of protection. It's about thinking about the bigger picture and how everything fits together.
Exactly. We need to view the landscape as a whole. And this is where involving stakeholders becomes so important.
Stakeholders, you mean like local communities, indigenous groups?
Yeah, these are the people who live and work in and around these forests, so they have a deep understanding of the ecosystem.
So their knowledge and perspective are crucial.
Absolutely. By involving them in the decision-making process, we can develop more effective and sustainable management practices. It's about finding solutions that benefit both people and the environment.
It makes sense. You can't protect something if you don't understand it or if people who live there aren't on board.
Exactly. And another key piece of the puzzle is research.
Research, always a good thing. But specifically, what kind of research is needed when it comes to protecting these forests?
We need ongoing research and monitoring to really understand how these ecosystems are responding to all the challenges we've talked about. How is biodiversity changing? How is climate change impacting different species? What strategies can we develop to mitigate those impacts?
So it's about gathering data, but then actually using that data to inform our actions.
Exactly, and we need to share that knowledge. With policymakers, with the public, everyone needs to be aware of the critical role these forests play in our world.
It's not just about studying the forest, it's about using that knowledge to make a real difference on the ground.
Right. And that brings us to the concept of adaptive management.
Adaptive management. That sounds kind of flexible.
It is. It's about being willing to adapt our strategies as we learn more and as conditions change. We have to accept that we don't have all the answers and that ecosystems are constantly evolving.
So we're constantly learning, adapting, and improving our approach.
Exactly. We monitor the effects of our actions, we learn from the results, and then we adjust our approach as needed. It's a dynamic process, not a static one.
It's like we're working with the forest, not against it.
Exactly. It's about collaboration, understanding, and a willingness to change course when needed. And that's how we can ensure the long-term health and resilience of these amazing ecosystems.
Okay, so we've got protected areas, connectivity, stakeholder involvement, research, and adaptive management. A lot to think about, but it sounds like a hopeful approach.
It is. There's a lot we can do if we work together.
We've talked a lot about the threats and the solutions, but I think it's important to circle back to something we mentioned earlier, the sheer productivity of temperate forests. What does that actually mean?
Oh, it's really quite remarkable. When we talk about productivity, we're talking about the rate at which these forests convert sunlight into biomass.
Biomass, meaning?
It's essentially a measure of how much life they support. And temperate forests are incredibly efficient at this process. Remember those ideal climate conditions we talked about?
Yeah, consistent rainfall, fertile soils, that Goldilocks zone.
Exactly. All of that contributes to this remarkable productivity.
Okay, so they've got the perfect recipe for life to flourish. But can you give us some tangible examples? Like, what does this abundance actually look like?
Well, take the Appalachian Mountains, for instance.
Okay, in the eastern United States.
Right, one of the most diverse temperate forests in the world. You've got these towering trees, oaks, maples, hickories, chestnuts, creating a multi-layered canopy that provides food and shelter for a whole range of creatures. Black bears, white-tailed deer, bobcats, raccoons, foxes, squirrels, you name it, it's probably there. And don't forget about all the birds.
It's like a nature documentary come to life.
It really is.
Any other standout examples?
Oh, absolutely. The Pacific Northwest, with those incredible temperate rainforests.
Oh yeah, those iconic images of towering redwoods and Douglas firs.
Exactly. Draped in moss and ferns, they create this almost mystical atmosphere. And again, incredibly productive, supporting a rich web of life. You've got salmon swimming upstream to spawn, spotted owls nesting high in the canopy, Roosevelt elk, black-tailed deer. It's just teeming with life.
It's amazing to think about all that diversity existing in these forests, and it reinforces the point that protecting them isn't just about saving trees, it's about preserving entire ecosystems.
Exactly right. We're talking about complex, interconnected systems that support a remarkable array of life.
And provide so many benefits to us as well.
Oh, absolutely. Clean air, clean water, carbon storage, climate regulation, not to mention the recreational opportunities, the cultural inspiration, that sense of connection to the natural world.
Well, I definitely feel a renewed sense of appreciation for these often overlooked ecosystems. As we wrap up, what are some key takeaways you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they come away with an understanding of just how vital temperate forests are to our planet. And I hope they'll also feel a sense of urgency about the need to protect them. They're not just collections of trees, they're intricate, interconnected systems that support an incredible diversity of life, and we need them.
Well said. This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to the wonders and complexities of temperate forests. A huge thank you to our expert for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and insights.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of temperate forests. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive. Until then, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep appreciating the incredible natural world around us.